Welcome to the PLC session 2 for scoring challenge area assessments.
Yay.
Did you already download everything?
Yeah, I actually printed it out too.
Great. Then we can go ahead and get going. And we already know each other, so we can kind of go through that stuff. And you already know how to use the the box and all that stuff. So just remember, we're not doing nuts and bolts. Just talking about the assessment section here.
Hmm.
Alrighty. So go on here. All right. Chat box. Knowledge.
Got
This is stuff you've already done.
it. Hmm.
This is kind of awkward.
No, it's fine. You can
Oh, I
practice.
believe Sean Harris has joined us.
Oh,
Welcome,
hi, Sean.
Sean. If you look down on the right-hand side, you'll see it. Oh, he's already found it.
Hmm.
Great. Right, well, what we're going to be doing today is mainly not doing nuts and bolts, but we're going to be actually going over the assessment area specifically, and we'll be doing a lot of sharing back and forth of ideas and just kind of walking through the process of actually how to do the scoring as well. Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to type them in, and we'll cover them as we go. Make sure you've down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the participant handout and some other items to download here with the environment, the assessment, as well as the state building assessment. So if you want to go ahead and do those, and pull up AP Insight in a separate window. My name is Joseph Padenberg. I teach in Greenville, South Carolina. I've been teaching now for 22 years. I've been with AP World for the past 11. And we started dabbling with AP Insight at the end of last year and have been using it this year. Let me know when you have everything downloaded there, Sean. All right, let's go. So the main thing we're going to check into here, explore, is how can you use challenge area assessments to help students acquire and apply the skills needed to be successful in the AP exam. Remember, AP Insight is an extra tool to use to enable them to do better. So we're going to look at what we can do today with these actual assessments and us scoring them to help them improve. Want to make sure that we understand how to accurately and consistently apply the AP Insight scored guidelines to free response questions. So at the end today, you should be able to consistently apply them and provide help to your students to help them improve, and also getting access to colleagues to improve your own ideas, tapping into other best practices. First, we'll talk about the challenge area assessments. We'll talk about how the rubrics we have for AP Insight align to the rubrics now and the rubrics that are coming. And we'll actually walk through the scoring guide for a short response, look at a short response. Then we'll actually score it, and then we'll talk about why it scored what it did, and we'll do the same thing with a document-based question and the long essay. And the whole time we'll be doing questions and answers, and we'll be sharing ideas and that all along the way. And of course, at the end, as we always do with AP Insight, at the end we'll ask you to take a little survey to let us know what you thought of the PLC tonight. If I start talking too fast, please let me know. So here's a question we've got to answer ourselves, and I'm going to answer it, and you guys answer it. Read through it here, and then actually gauge where you are when you're scoring your students with essays. I understand your point there, Sean. I feel that same way. You'll get to a point and you're thinking, okay, is this close enough? Is it too vague? Or particularly when with the compare and contrast, you're thinking, okay, did they actually quantify this both sides to get this analysis point? I understand that. And if you have a lot of classes, I'm sure D comes up as well. But our goal is to make sure that we can get closer and closer to A. And I usually find myself wavering between A and B. Excuse me a second. Sorry about that, folks. What are typically your challenges when it comes to the free response questions? I asked you. Oh, I'm sorry, Sean. I thought I clicked the mic. You weren't on when I did. I guess I apologize. Okay, Sean. Can you? Are you there, Sean? Okay, we can do that.
Mhm.
As you know, there's changes coming with the AP exam. They're going to start including short answer questions, and we've already done that with AP Insight to help you prepare as well. And the goal here is to make sure that we can help the students make those connections as we're doing those building blocks, get them to the point where we've done all these skills, we've got this knowledge. Now let's make sure that we've actually helped them get to the point we need to move on. And that's part of the purpose of these responses. And our guidelines are very similar to what's actually in the rubric for the actual exam.
Can you guys hear me now?
All right, Sean's there.
I'm in.
Yay.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Get my volume turned down a little bit. Sounds like I'm yelling into my microphone. All right. So when you guys do, when have you done a complete assessment yet for a challenge area, Sean? Amy and I already talked about it, and she and I are both at the same point where we're almost ready to give an actual assessment.
Right.
All right, I've done two. I've done a short answer multiple choice combo in time period 3, and I took some of the documents from one of the DBQs about the fall of Baghdad and made it into a full DBQ. So I've
Oh,
done one assessment online and then one offline.
okay. So you're a step ahead of me. I actually am having to do it all by paper because half my students at home actually don't have internet access on a computer. They're all either doing it on a phone or we have to do it at school. So
Right. We're a one-to-one school as of this year.
Yeah.
So AP Insight kind of fit well with that new capability.
definitely sounds like you're in the same position Amy's in.
Yes. Yep. I'm also in one to one. I would say that I have given about maybe 15 building block quizzes so far. Because I just have them do it as like a homework assignment, like a sort of a do the lesson in class and then follow up. They do that formative assessment, and I go back and grade it. Um, so I've done about 15 of those, and I just haven't. I think I have finished one of the challenge areas. but with the time crunch this close to exams, I want to do the challenge area assessment in class during class time, and I just don't have the time before the final exam, but it's probably something I'm going to do right when we come back in January.
Right.
I will say that doing it on paper definitely slows you down
Sure.
because you can't. Some of the stuff that we could do at home, we're doing it all at school, so it does take a little bit longer to get through an entire set of building blocks.
Mm-hmm.
But I can already see the difference in my students, particularly with the general concepts of state building, particularly with the religious states, with the splits in the Islamic empires. Are seeing how this little fraction called out. I'm like, you're getting it! Oh, finally! Now on the screen, you see talk about when we should actually assign the challenge areas. So they take the building block quizzes along the way, and that builds up to the challenge area assessments. Okay. And what we need to make sure we do is that we make sure students are ready before we assign those free response questions. And one of the things I actually had to go back and do was reteach the stuff they, okay, for lack of a better word, bombed on the little quizzes. And I was anticipating them not missing it that bad. It's hard to explain that to administration when you're back starting where you were a week ago, but as long as we're making some progress. And what we can also do, and this is what I'll actually try on this next one, I'm going to assign them the actual assessment to write at home and to come in, and we'll start off doing a peer review and then discuss what they read and what they saw in someone else's that they didn't put in theirs that should have been. Kind of use it to stimulate discussion.
Might steal the idea.
Oh, please feel free to steal it. I stole it from John.
Yeah, that's how I've done most of my writing assessment is they'll write an essay, they'll peer score it using scoring rubric, the standard College Board rubric for the essays, and then figure out what they should have put in their essays that they didn't based on that.
Well, Natasha just joined us. Natasha, I'm going to enable your microphone so you can join in if you have one. Oh, it's okay. We won't hold it against you. There is a quiz at the end, and you'll have to make it up on. Do you have all the downloads from the bottom of the screen? All right, great. Basically, all we've done so far is basically explain what we're doing tonight is going over the assessment portion, not really a nuts and bolts session, but how to actually apply the rubrics. And what we just talked about is when should we assign the assessments and how we have done the assessments to make them work in our classroom. Amy and Sean have the distinct advantage of having a one-to-one setup, and I'm stuck using paper, so it works both ways. Do you have a microphone, Natasha? If you do, you may need to. Is that you?
Hello.
Hey!
This is Natasha.
Hi, Natasha.
So sorry I'm late.
That's okay, no problem. Okay, so everyone ready to move on? Alrighty. We actually just said all this stuff about the assessments and making the connection among the building blocks. All right, so now we should be looking at the question of contextualization, environment, and then demography. Students are asked to read one historian's interpretation of the spread of disease in the Roman Empire. Students must describe the relationships between migration and the spread of the empire and the spread of disease. They must also explain the historian's main argument. Sorry about that. Allergies are a booger. Right. Now, if you also look on here, this is very similar to, now it's not the exact same setup, but what it is it's along the same lines with this question here. Because in this question, actually on the AP World Practice exam, students are asked to compare two historians' interpretation about the Cold War. They must then support the historian's interpretation with evidence and then explain which argument better explains the origins of the Cold War. So what we're having them do is read and understand historians' interpretations. They have to identify, they have to explain the central argument, and provide evidence to support that conclusion. So it's not the exact same question, but you're asking for those same skills. So now we're looking at the question here, and what we're going to do is walk through the scoring guide. Hang on a second. I'm having technical difficulties on my end. Computer. Computer stop. What is? My computer is frozen, so bear with me momentarily. I'll be right back. Okay, Sean and Natasha, can you actually see slide 13?
If slide 13
Yes, I can see slide 13.
is it let's
Okay.
practice?
It should say let's practice to the top. Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, hopefully my computer will start working on my end. So I hit the button. It didn't change for me, but it changed for you, so we can move on. Sorry about that. All right, so go ahead and read this free response. And then we'll talk about the scoring guidelines. And make sure the questions off to the side what they're actually be asked to do. There's 3 parts, A, B, and C. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the little man with his arm raised. When you're finished reading, just click on that for me.
We're just reading the actual excerpt,
That's the actual question.
We're not reading the response.
No, not the response yet, no.
I may have missed this in the beginning, but whenever it says briefly describe one example, are they allowed to do this like in bullet point format, or should it be in complete sentence format? And if so, how many sentences are they typically looking for?
We do need him to actually completely answer the question. It is to be in paragraph form.
Okay.
How long how many sentences? I guess that really depends on. To be honest with you, that depends on how well they answer it.
Okay.
That's really what it is.
Okay.
So you can do it in one sentence if you write a good enough sentence.
All right.
Was that vague enough for you?
No, that's good. I just know a lot of my a lot of my kids are coming from AP Human Geography, where a lot of them mention that they bullet point answers. I didn't teach AP Human, so I'm not 100% sure of the things that they're talking about as far as bullet pointing, doing bullet points for answers. But I didn't know if that was like with A and B when it says briefly describe one example. If that could be done in that, or if they're being expected to write complete sentences in paragraph format.
Well, AP requires that they be in paragraph form. In fact, at the AP read, do you go to the read, Natasha?
This will be my first summer coming up.
Well, excellent, excellent. We're looking forward to having you there.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean, do you go to the read?
I have not yet, but hope to in the future.
Oh, well, we look forward to having you. It is absolutely the best professional development you will ever go to. You'll hear people say that, and they are not lying. It is absolutely fabulous. But one of the things they teach you about is that you cannot accept the bullet points. They must be written in paragraph form. And in a
Right,
short
and I
answer
know,
question, they'll give you a box. They have to stay within the box.
okay, okay.
So short and to the point. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Alrighty. Okay, so we've read that one. Let's move on now. Let's see if I can get my computer to. All right, everybody get to the next one with the proctor's directions there with the scoring guide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, all right, we do have some progress going on. Every once in a while, things will work on my end, I guess. It's a district computer, what can I say? Right? And if you notice, the first point here is describing one example. Okay? They're not asking for a lot, it's just a description of it. Okay? And then you look to the second one, again, it's a description, except this time it's relationship, the first one was relationship between epidemic disease and human migration within the empire. That was the first one. The second one, once again, is just a description, and it's talking about how the size of the empire allowed for that change. Okay, so you can't use the same thing twice. It's got to be something different talking about it. And the last one is the population. This one's a different. Letter C is different because it says explain. You got to go beyond just saying, "Hey, here's one." You've got to make that connection. Okay, and that because of the size of the empire, that set the stage for this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're going to do here now is I'm going to go to the next slide here, and you should have that response there. You have the response, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and read that response and score it based on that guideline, and let's see how the person did.
This was in the downloads, correct?
Yes.
Wait, I'm falling behind. I'm not seeing the sample student response.
You don't have the sample student
Yeah,
response?
where am I looking for this?
Page 4 of the.
Now did it come up?
Yes.
I see it on the screen now, yeah.
Okay, because I'd hit the button and it came up on me, but not on you.
I'm seeing it now on the
You
screen.
have it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also in the download that we got. It's also on page 4 of the PLC handout.
Right. The PLC Proctor Booklet Environment Demography Assessment.
I think it's just the participant handout.
You should have a handout down the bottom.
There's like three. There's three.
Right here. AP Insight participant handout.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, I got it now. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that, Sean. I'm
That's fine.
going off, taking off the remote mouse. We're going to go with the mouse pad. Let's see if this helps any. Anybody need more time?
I need probably one more minute.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, everybody ready now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How many would give him a point for letter A?
I would give it
I say
Okay.
yes.
He does get the point for A, or this student does get the point for letter A. They remember all it is a description. They're identifying it. They do that. It's not absolutely fabulous or great, but it's there. Okay. How about letter B?
I thought this one was worded kind of weird the way that they explain it.
I agree that it's sort of strange. It's strange because there's not really specific. It's not really a specific example. It's very vague.
Right. I think the most specific piece of evidence is using the phrase hiding secrets, but I don't think the explanation of that is specific enough with evidence.
Well, the beauty of it is that he doesn't have to explain. He has to do what?
Describe.
Give a description of it, and that's what he does. It's not great. It's kind of weak. It's a little on the vague side and poorly worded, but it is there. Right? So that would get a point as well. What about C?
I say yes.
So I have one yes.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it because I think he identifies what the traditional sort of explanation is. Um, and he identifies the idea that it fell because of diseases. So like he does that or whatever, the student does that. But looking at the when I'm looking at the criteria of what a full credit response versus zero.
And what's the key word in that one?
Explain.
Explain. Does he actually explain?
No, he doesn't like make the connection. Like he doesn't detail sort of the chain of events linking disease with the cause of the collapse.
That's right. He didn't make the connection. He identifies it, but the connection isn't there. Now, if he had said something like the diseases weaken the legions, and that's what allowed for the success of the invasions, that would have been a clear explanation. But all he did here in C was like he did in A and B, which was identify. And if we look at that prompt again, within the, well, not the prompt, but the actual rubric, the rubric says that they need to explain.
So because he or she restates information from the author rather than kind of maybe bringing in a little bit of outside knowledge, then he doesn't get it?
Well, there's no explanation of it. He says disease caused the fall. How did it cause the fall?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because he says Germanic invasion, he says disease, but there's no connection between the two. And in the actual article, the author talks about how the legions were weak and couldn't stand up to the invasions. Okay. And if he had made that connection, put those two different parts of the article together, then he would have gotten the point.
Okay.
Everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah. I do have one, I don't know if this is a comment or a question or an observation. I understand that in the next 6 months, we're going to learn a lot more about how to score these short answer questions as we go through summer institutes. Consultants have better information. I went to the AP annual conference and went through one of the AP World, like before the session trainings, where there was some information on the scoring the short answers, and the there was a discussion, and it was not a consensus on, to be honest, among the consultants I heard about whether the wording of the questions, describe versus explain, was a significant change in wording where they just chose a bunch of words that to teachers sound interchangeable. Right? It seems like you're making an argument that substantively a student who describes is doing something that is different than a student that explains. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, you are. We actually had that almost exact same conversation when I was talking with Chris and John, and when we were discussing this. And there has to be that explanation of the connection. It can't just be presumed. He's presuming that you see the connection. It's more of an implication here. He actually has to explicitly state it, and
Okay.
he doesn't state it there.
Okay, that helps.
Alrighty, let's keep going then. All right, we already did that one. Okay, we're going to look at a DBQ question, right? And if you do go to the read, the odds are that's what you'll be scoring, and you'll memorize the documents in the first 20 minutes, and then you'll be sick of those documents for the rest of your life. Every time you go to a sign, you're like, no, I hate this one. But they're easy to score once you get a hang of it. Okay, so if you see 1, 7, and 8 in your Proctor booklet, okay. And we're going to go take a look at that. All right. So let's take a look at what it's actually asking them to do in this question. All right, the first thing it's telling you to do is state a relevant thesis supported by the documents and addresses the parts of the question. That's standard for every thesis addressing the question, right? I mean, that's what AP stands for, address the prompt. Okay. Now we have to distinguish between primary and secondary sources, analyze the source in terms of audience purpose, historical context, and or point of view. And then it says include an analysis of relevant evidence of the documents, acknowledge limitations or contradictions in the sources, and also support the thesis that you wrote about the question with evidence from the documents. Okay, now that's different from the earlier one. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And the last one, analyze how the process of state formation, expansion, or dissolution transformed Baghdad. Now that's specifically for this question. That's that contextualization. Okay. All right. So, and let's move into the rubric here. Ready? Now the thesis is pretty clear. You have to take evidence from the actual documents to create your thesis to address the prompt. Okay? Now the second one, you have to analyze all, that's letter B, you have to analyze all or all but one of the documents, and they want you to use either audience purpose, historical context, or point of view. And it has to be explicit. It can't be this implied thing. It needs to be clearly stated. For letter C, C wants, you're supposed to explain all or all but one of the documents and tell about how the historical event developed. Does that make sense? We're talking about what the documents actually say about the event. That's letter C. Everybody following me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then when we get to letter D, letter D is actually the limitations of the document. Okay. Is there contradictions between the documents? Is there something more there that's needed? Okay, that's similar to the what's our missing document kind of thing. Give me the one extra document that we currently are using. All right, now letter E. This is evidence to support their thesis, the one that they actually wrote for A. This is, are they giving you evidence from the documents to support their thesis to address the prompt? And it has to be from all or all but one of the documents. And so technically, if you don't get the point for A, that thesis point, you can't get the point for E. Make sense?
Yes. Are B and E kind of similar?
They are similar. Okay, it's similar because you're talking about, with B, it's the actual analyzation of the document. It's the same point of view question, that point that we have in now.
Right.
Why are they writing this document? Why does it say it the way it says it? Okay, right. Are they sugarcoating the facts here so they don't get their head lopped off by the emperor? Or that kind of thing.
Right.
Right. That's what you're looking for in B. Okay. In C, you actually give evidence about what the document says about the event in question. And in E, it's how are you using these documents to support your actual thesis. So C you can get without the thesis point, but E you can't.
That makes sense. Just like distinguishing a kid between a kid who can like understand what the documents are saying and they get the main idea and they see how it connects. And that's right. The one point for C. And then E is like, okay, but they really get it because they have this cohesive thesis, and when they discuss the documents, they are like intentionally supporting the thesis they made.
Amy, you're going in and out. Can you turn your mic volume up a little bit, please?
Sorry. What I was saying was just that it kind of makes sense. Like C is sort of the kid who can read the document and get the main idea and they can write about it. But then E rewards the kid who not only understands the documents, but that can actually use them to support a cohesive thesis, like their original thesis statement.
Yes, ma'am. That is right. Well done. Well done. All right. Now, for F, the contextualization, you need to explain the larger context. How does the context relate to the process of cause and effect? The historical context of Baghdad caused the decline of the city. How was what's going on leading to the decline of the city? and putting that all together. And to do this for letter G, they can connect it to, let's say, this is similar to the fall of Rome because, and they draw that out and they make that clear comparison. Or they could say this is different from Constantinople. Now, once again, with difference, they have to say, you can't just say, well, it happened here, it didn't happen there. But they could say, it didn't happen there because of this, whereas it happened here because of that. And that's how you get point G. Does everybody follow me through that one? Any questions on that? Alrighty, so let's keep moving then. Let me see if I can get this thing to change for me here. Okay.
So actually,
Now,
can I interject real quick? I think I
yeah.
do have a question.
Okay, well, hold on. Let me get this thing to
Oh, yeah,
back
go
up.
ahead. Yeah.
All right, did it back up for you?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay, so we just went through this scoring guide, the AP Insight version of this, the Proctor Direction scoring guide. It seems like this is largely similar, but not identical to the scoring rubric that was published this summer that we're going to use for next year's DBQ. Am I on base on that? Am I off base on that?
It's not exactly the same, but there's the ideas, the skills that we're looking for are very similar. You may not be applying in the exact same way to get each A, B, C, D, E, but you're looking for the same skills.
Okay.
You still have to interpret the document, still have to understand what it means in the context of how you are trying to answer the question. You still have to determine whether or not this is a legitimate, is this really a legitimate argument here, or is there a contradiction between the two documents? Those still things that we're asking them to do now.
Right.
It's worded a little bit differently here, and we'll actually compare the rubrics here in a little bit.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay?
Yep.
Alrighty. So now, when we're getting ready to score questions, do you all have a real planning period, or is yours always interrupted during the day with other things they want you to do?
I won't tell you what my schedule's like, or you'll be jealous.
Say again?
But I won't tell you what my schedule's like because you'll all be jealous.
Well, you're at a private school, Amy, so that's a little different. But in my school, you don't really get a planning period because someone's either knocking on your door asking you to cover a class, go do this, go do that, cover a hallway duty, cover an assembly. So actually sitting down and scoring all of them at one time is nearly impossible unless you do it at home or after school. And what we're encouraging people to do is before you actually just jump in and start scoring, do it very similar to what they do at the read. Pull some samples, don't look at names, read them, get a feel for what's coming from the students, and maybe adjust your rubrics to kind of fit between what you're expecting and kind of the feel of what you're getting, and so we can make that uniform across the board. And once again, since you're scoring the essay, you can determine, you get to be the question leader and head reader all at the same time. Your pay doesn't change any, but you get all the responsibilities. Right? Any comments or questions?
No, it makes sense.
No.
Alrighty. Alright, so you should have on the next page, you should see in your download, you should see that student response blown up a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead and take a minute to read that, and just raise your hand when you're done reading it.
So you want our hand up when we're done reading it or done scoring it?
Scoring it. It's usually one and the same for me. I apologize. I was not putting in proper context.
So this would be their entire response, this one page?
This was the entire response, which is not true for the read. You'll read 7 or 8 pages for a DBQ at the read.
Now, the original documents that go with this DBQ, are they in this packet that we received?
You should have them.
Should be in the Proctor.
It should be Proctor page. Let's see. Proctor page is that. Let me see if I can find that page for you.
Oh, I see it. I found it. Sorry.
You found them? Okay, good.
In the Proctor directions for point B, which is the point of view part,
Okay.
is there a numerical, is there a number of times or a number of documents they have to successfully attempt point of view for this activity?
For this activity, it's all or all but one.
Okay.
I may have missed this in the beginning, so I apologize if I did, but is this just like a sample, or are the DBQs going to be the short, the new ones?
For AP Insight, this will be similar to what you'll find. The actual, what we were told at the read is that there will probably be fewer documents, but longer documents. So I'm not sure what that means, because right now there could be 6 to 10 documents, and longer documents or shorter documents. Amy, do you remember them saying anything else at the read about it?
I feel like it come out in the release rubrics. I think it's supposed to be like 6 or 7.
So it's really not that much shorter than the what we'll be finding then.
I think it's supposed to be 6 or 7, or maybe it's always 7.
I thought it was always going to be 7, but that could be me confusing US and the future of AP World.
Yeah, but I think it's supposed to be the same. It's supposed to be the same across all the history. So if it's 7 for US, then I would imagine it's going to be 7 for all of them.
Now, I did hear it was 7 for US, so I guess that means it will definitely be 7. But that wouldn't make sense if they're going to make the documents longer. They there's got to be some short ones in there. That's a lot of writing in a short period of time.
Right. I think it is 7 because the new rubric says to earn the point for evidence, you have to use at least 6 documents as evidence,
And I
and
just
at
did a
least
confirmation from Chris, 7 documents to the DBQ.
okay, and at least 4 for the point of view is like the new rubric.
Okay, so Amy has finished scoring.
I need like 1 more minute. I'm almost done.
Oh, take your time. Okay. So let's get moving here. All right. So, did anyone give it a thesis?
I did.
I did.
Okay. So I hear 2 yeses. Do I get a third?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. All right. Yes. Okay. It did get a thesis point. All righty. How about for letter B? Did it analyze all or but one of the documents?
No,
No.
I didn't get that. I got maybe the one document where he talked about Instituta and then Travelers.
There's definitely some attempts there, but he does not get all of them for sure. All right. How about C? Does he explain all or all but one of the documents about the actual event from information in the documents?
Yeah, there's only 5. I gave it a point for that. There's only 5 documents. Used 1, 2, 4, and 5 that I.
Anybody else?
Um, yeah. Now I was. Let me. Now I'm confused between C and E.
Okay, C, all you have to do is use the documents for evidence about the event in question.
Right.
Okay. E, you actually have to support your thesis with evidence from the document.
Okay. Is so I'm as I struggle with this, I think I'm confused comparing this to the current rubric. So if our current rubric, you get a point for understanding, right, the documents, and then a separate 2 points or 1 point for evidence, right? And the evidence part is how you relate it to the thesis and ultimately the prompt.
Yes. Yes.
Um, is the difference between C and E here similar to that difference, or is it a whole new difference?
It is a similar idea. You actually understand the document, and based on what you tell us here, you can give us evidence to say that you understand how this connects to the event. You can make that connection between this document and the event. You can give
Right.
us
And that's
evidence to
C.
show that. And
Right.
that is letter C.
Got it.
It seems like to me. It seems like it is the 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 current rubric that we use. You can get the evidence point even if you don't have a thesis. Like if you don't have an if you didn't get the thesis point for your paper, you can still get understanding and evidence. You can get those 3 points if you discuss all the documents and maybe make like a small sort of argument within your paragraph when you're discussing the document. But in this rubric, to me, it seems like the difference is maybe we're holding the kids to a little bit higher of a standard, where the point for their C is still that, just understanding the documents. Can you see how they discuss and relate to the prompt? But then if you really have to have an actual argument, and you really have to use the documents to support your argument to get the point for E. Is that correct?
Yes, that is what we're looking for. E, you actually have to connect it to your thesis, and you actually have to have a legitimate thesis. If you don't have the legitimate thesis, you cannot get point E. You can still get C, but you cannot get E. As you explained there, you've got to have that connection to your own argument, and if it's not there, you don't get E. So would
Okay.
you say he has C and not E? Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying the other way around?
I think I would say yes on C.
Okay. What about D?
I like he did that once. But maybe I'm getting the limitations and the POV confused. Because I feel like, could you maybe get the limitation by doing a POV?
That's going to be
Does that
difficult.
make sense?
That would be really difficult to do, unless you're saying the POV is causing the limitation, and that is definitely not done here.
Right.
Because you
Okay.
could say that.
Because sometimes
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh no, I was just saying, like with the current rubric, sometimes I, tell my students that they can potentially match their additional document with an existing document. Maybe the document shows one side of the event or the perspective of one side but not the other side, so they can kind of ask for the counter argument to that if it fits with the question or the prompt. And maybe I'm just getting that confused with a limitation.
That, to me, that makes sense. I do the same thing with my kids, because in the process of them asking for that sort of other side, if they do a good job of explaining why the other side, that reveals what the limitation of the document is actually. I don't know. To me, that makes sense.
Right. I mean, I know, like in the current DBQ rubric of the 4 bullet points in last year's rubric from last year's DBQ, the fourth point was basically making an argument about the relative credibility or reliability of the source. Is this D subpoint that same enterprise?
If you can connect that his point of view is causing a limitation of the accuracy of the document or how useful it is, if you're sugarcoating the facts so that it is to the point where it's no longer accurate, then you could do that. This point of view is causing this, but you have to specifically make that connection. You can't just say, and because of his point of view, this document isn't valid.
Right.
They've got to spell it out.
Right.
Is that making sense? Is that coming out the way I'm trying to say it?
Yes.
But that wouldn't be the only way to argue the limitations of a document, right? This is not just
No.
a point of view. Okay.
No. She brought up the point of view. One of the things we're looking for is there a disagreement between the documents,
Sure.
and that's probably. And if you can specifically state, well, this document disagrees with that one. That's one of the things that you teach them when you're grouping them, and you say this point of view is this way, but this one over here shows it from a different light. You're comparing those differences. Right, that's along the lines of what we're also looking for here. So there's different ways you can do it.
Right.
Okay, so would you say he got letter D?
No.
No, he does not get letter D. All right, how about E? I mean, he did get a thesis, so he could get point E. Does he actually give evidence to support their thesis from all or one of the documents?
sort of complicated because his thesis is like a multi-part thesis. I'm just sort of talking through. The first part of his thesis is identifying factors which are power struggle, poverty, lack of school conflict, and he uses the document to support that part of it. Then he also says the second part of his thesis claims that the main factor was the Mongol invasion, but I'm not sure if he really proves that. He discusses it a little bit.
Does he use all but one of the documents to give evidence to that point?
Right, like I guess he uses all but one of the documents toward various parts of the. So I guess I'm just looking for what's that line here, because the kid clearly he identifies multiple factors, but then makes the statement like this is the main factor. So I'm looking for is that line for this point. Does he have to actually support his claim about the main factor, or is it okay that he just did use the document to support the things we talked about?
I can't really hear anything you're saying at this point.
I'm sorry.
I think maybe if I can paraphrase, I think this is on the same issue. That I don't think the argument he or she develops in the body paragraphs is this distinction that the main factor was the Mongol invasions, as opposed to just a laundry list of 4 factors. I think that the body paragraphs support a laundry list of 4 factors, but I don't think there's evidence that the Mongols were the main factor.
That I agree with. So his actual thesis, this thesis is not actually supported by evidence from the documents.
Right, it's not balanced. The thesis is not balanced with the evidence.
Right, so he doesn't get F, or the person does not get F. Okay, how about E? I'm sorry, I'm looking at F and saying E. Sorry about that, or looking at E saying F. All right, so how about F? Do they explain the larger context of how what's going on in Baghdad is causing the decline of the city?
No.
I don't think he gets F either.
No. Okay. And let's move on to G. Does he connect it to anything else?
No.
No.
Okay, so did everyone come to the same score as a 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Woohoo! All right. So, now, after you've read the sample, let's say that was your sample, what would you do with your rubric here? Would you make any modifications to it at all?
I would. I think if the rubric for the AP test for the new DBQ has 7 documents and you need to have, I'm not looking at it right now, point of view in 4 of them, I would try to establish something close to that ratio with 5 documents, which I think probably means 3, as opposed to all but 1.
Yeah, but the point of view, like as we read the Proctor directions, you're talking about point B.
Right.
It doesn't have to be point of view. It can be audience, purpose, historical context, and or point of view.
Right. I agree. What I meant.
You're talking about the number of documents itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that what you meant? Okay.
So I agree it doesn't have to be point of view. I was using point of view in the old rubric as the umbrella term for what is now going to become HIPPO or HAPPY or whichever acronym we use.
Hippo and happy.
Discussing the audience or the purpose to me is a far easier task than actually doing a real accurate point of view.
Right. I agree. I think at a very basic level, I try to do everything I can to be as consistent to the AP rubric as I can. I think it creates confusion if I score things in my class different than the AP reader is going to score them, kids get confused as to which rubric they're trying to write to. I understand you don't write to a rubric, but I think having consistency is helpful in my experience. And I understand we're doing a document here with a DBQ with 5 documents, not 7. And from time perspectives, I like that. But I would, for me, try to make this scoring rubric as close as I possibly could to the actual AP rubric.
One thing that I do to account for that, especially maybe in a transition year, and even this year with my students, I just have a lower group this year. The first time they do the essay, I have them do each essay twice. The first time they do it, it only counts for half credit. The second time's full credit. So I can give them good feedback with the first one. And the second one's better, so it counts full, if that makes sense.
That's a good idea. What I usually do is I'll give them when we're first starting writing the essay, I say, okay, you're going to write the essay, but I'm going to have you hand it to somebody else, and they know these are the parts we're looking for, solely looking for either one of the points. We're looking for the thesis. We're looking for a direct comparison or something along those lines, and they're going to see if they find that. If not, they're going to give it back to you, and you've got to correct that. And then you turn it in for me to read. And so they know I'm going to read the whole thing, point out flaws or whatever I find, but that's the one point I'm looking for. So if you want the 100 for this essay, you've got to have that in there.
So you pick out like one aspect to focus on, or a few to focus on, rather than the entire rubric?
When they're learning the essay, yes. So your first 2 or 3 essays that you'll write for compare and contrast, like the first one, I always read. Only point I'm counting is thesis. I'll comment on everything else and point out where you could have clarified for direct comparison or something like that. Or you need to, hey, this is a little vague, be more detailed. You could have said it this way, something like that, for your evidence point. But the only one that differentiates between a 90 and a 100 is this one. And after the third essay, okay, these are the things I'm looking for. These 3 things I've already scored on this essay, you have to have all 3 to get a 100. If you're missing 1, it's a 90. Missing 2, it's an 80. Missing 3, it's a 70. And then after that essay, it's the full score. And it's 100. You have to get all the points. And it goes 4 points down for each one you have. So you could actually score a 64 with a 1, or 68 with a 1, I think. And so, because I'm building them up to that actual full score, so it's not just hit them right away and they're devastated.
Right.
Because most of my kids don't know how to write anything anyway.
I just have a problem, I'm sure a lot of you do, with just large classes.
Yes.
One semester to teach the entire course.
No, that I don't have. I have the entire year. You're on block?
We're on block 1 semester.
Oh, we'll pray for you when the.
I know, right?
That's tough.
So, and your first semester. So, do you have like an early bird class or something to help them out, or maybe you'll need to use AP Insight for them to help them review themselves as they go through, because they could use that progress sheet and keep going back over it.
Well, the only thing, I have 2 more sections in the spring, so I'm just inviting my fall kids to my spring review sessions. They can attend.
Well, that's good. That's good.
So I'm going to have to take off. I apologize. I've got to deal with the rest of my family stuff tonight.
Oh, I understand that. And thanks for joining us, Sean.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. This was really helpful.
And anytime you need anything, feel free to. You can email AP Insight, and we can get your questions answered.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so let's get moving on here. All right. Oh man, I think I know what the problem is. I think my screensaver is trying to come on. See if I can get this thing turned off. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, I got it turned off now. All right, did we see the free response scoring process next?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. All right, all right. So this is the same thing they teach you to read. First thing we teach our students is what is the question asking, and this is one thing I beat into my students. AP stands for address the prompt. And I know it's basic writing, but the first thing I tell them to do is just restate the prompt so that you actually are addressing the question in your paragraph for your thesis. Right? Well, what we do is okay, what's the question? All right, now read over the rubrics. Right? And we do it, and they'll beat it into you when you come back from a break or whatever. You'll score with somebody and say, okay, before you do it, read over the rubrics. If you have a question, read the rubrics. Right? And the same thing here. All right. Is a process what we're doing, asking you to do now, is it similar to the read? It's extremely similar to the read. And the major difference is that you're scoring by yourself instead of with 1,000 of your closest nerd buddies. You also at the read, you've got tick sheets where you just kind of make marks as you go. You don't actually write on the scoring their essay. In fact, you get in major trouble if you do anything to them except for turn the page. So. Is my mic still working?
Yes.
Okay. The thing came undone when I turned. Sorry about that. And what we do on the read when first we'll read with somebody else and get comfortable with the rubrics and you'll talk about it. Right? You can actually teach your kids to do the same thing. If you have them do peer review, teach them the actual rubric. And then have them, okay, here's a rubric in front of you. This is what's required. All right, well, if you have a question, ask your neighbor first. Unless you're reading your neighbor's papers. Don't ask him. Ask someone else. That's the thing I always get. Why are you asking them? It's their paper. Right? Right? And work that out with them. And it's the same thing. If you're not sure about it, go back to the rubric. Right? And you can, like you asked earlier, can you get point of view and this? You can do that at the actual read. We call it double dipping. You get points for two different things in there. It's possible here as well. Okay. One of the things that I personally do with the AP read, I never look at the back of the booklet where the school number is. I also purposely do not know my school number, so I can't purposely knowingly grade my students' essays. I have no idea. I don't know our school number. Right? What I'm actually going to start doing is actually, unfortunately, I already know you learn their handwriting quickly, but tell them to put their name on the back of the back pages instead of the front, so that when you're reading it, you read just what's written there without looking at a name. What I do when I'm reading, I always put I give the students a code. If you see this letter or this combination or this phrase, that means these points here, and do that, and so that they can see where they're getting their points instead of just saying, "Oh, I got a 3." Is that Thomas?
Yes, I live next to a train. I'm in downtown.
Oh, downtown where?
Ackworth, Georgia.
Oh.
Oh, is that far from you, Amy?
Yeah, I'm in Lawrence. I live in Lawrenceville, but I teach in Sandy Springs.
Yeah, so I'm north of Atlanta.
Okay, and I'm in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
used to what you were talking about was indicate where students earn each point. I had like before when I was teaching AP World all by myself, I was the only teacher at the school. I would actually color code highlight kids'
Oh
essays.
wow.
Like thesis was always pink, orange was always addressing, right? So like each point had a different color, and then I would highlight their essay as I just as you're reading because it's pretty easy to do. you don't have to necessarily write anything out because they have the key to the color code. So you just highlight as you're reading where they earn the points, and that's pretty powerful too because they see exactly which sentences earned them points and which sentences were totally a waste of their time.
That's a great idea. I'm going to tell my students that when they peer review. Just use the highlighters.
And because it's color coded, they don't necessarily have to write anything, so it actually goes pretty quick in scoring them, other than switching colors. But I would have like a handful of, I'd have all the markers like ready to go, caps undone in my hand at the same time, and just go through quick.
I can see that now. Uncap, cap. Oh, did we lose Natasha? Okay. Let's see. Well, here's the actual rubric, which was what Sean was all excited about, and unfortunately he dropped off before we got there. And you'll see where the comparisons are for what we have and what is the actual AP scoring. And it's actually going to be redone in, I believe it's May. Okay. You'll see the arrows, the similar skill requirements are pointed out there. And now the grouping is supposed to be done away with as a terminology. I think they're going to, my understanding is they're going to organizing is the terminology they're using, which I guess you could still teach grouping because that's a way to organize your essay. But I like grouping better because it's kind of concise of what you're looking for. It's going to be interesting to see how you determine whether it's organized or not. And in the future, they're looking for more about what's the actual argument they're making in the essay. And it's just instead of just saying document 1, 3, and 5 say this, they're actually establishing an argument. And this rubric is going to be adjusted to reflect that with the change in the actual change of the rubric for next year. Does that make sense? Anybody out there?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh no, it makes total sense.
Alrighty. And here's the rubric, which we've actually already gone over. So we can, unless you want to go back over it, I can go ahead and skip on to the next slide here. Right. So how do you see AP Insight aligning with the current AP rubric?
For me, it seems like the new rubrics are just more precise. Like for example with grouping. I feel like the intention with grouping all along was supposed to be how two documents either reinforce each other or contradict each other. But then in practice, it's not really being that in the way that teachers taught what how we use grouping. So what I see is alignment where it's about exactly it is, but it's not like totally.
How about you, Natasha? Natasha, you back with us?
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, okay.
Sorry. I've been talking the whole time, and I just thought maybe, I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We had that issue earlier with microphones, so it's okay.
I did the step away thing for a second because my computer was dying, and I didn't know it turned my microphone off too when I did that. The step away thing.
Okay.
But anyways, I heard everything that she said. I agree in that it's more specific than the rubric now. Like I have the historical thinking skills posted in my classroom, like contextualization, synthesis, and that sort of thing, making a historical argument based on evidence. Like we do that and we practice it, but it's expected in the DBQ, but it's not specifically necessarily stated in the rubric as those terms. And I think it'll just be more consistent with what we're doing in the classroom with what they're being assessed with. So consistency, I think, is good.
What I like is the clarity of the verbiage, in with the exception of the organizing. I'm not really excited about that one. But where it says there's a difference between, okay, I understand the document, and now I'm actually using the document for my own thesis, not just to describe what happened. Now, I really like that them clarifying that difference. Particularly, you have to have a thesis to get that. I really like that because I actually do that in my class when it comes to a DBQ. I mean, it's supposed to support a thesis. You don't have a thesis, you can't get this point. But I said, yeah, I know you addressed them all. You understand that, but you can't get any evidence points. And I like them making that change.
I also like the consistency with the matching it up with APUSH, because I felt like there for a while a lot of my students thought that my class was a lot harder than APUSH because of the essay portions. And they see that they get to do free response, kind of shorter answers in APUSH, and they just kind of thought, well, Miss Beeman made us do 3 long essays. I don't know. I just like the consistency. Like, I make the exam, right?
Yeah.
But I just like the consistency from year to year.
And
Hey,
the thing is like the worst, because you teach them, you drill them on World DBQ, and then they come back and you have to like, you lied to us. That's not how you write a DBQ.
Yes, yeah.
It is how you write a DBQ for World. It's just not the same for US. So
Yeah,
that'll be nice. That'll be the same.
I had that same fight. Kids went, you taught us wrong. I said, no, I told you I was teaching for the AP World History rubric. I taught you the skills to use in U.S. history. I just didn't teach you their rubric. And they're like, oh.
They don't get that.
They missed that, actually, in part of it. Okay. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the peer scoring. Depending on the size of your class, 3 or 4 students may work. I personally, I go with pairs, because when I get 3 or 4 of them together, instead of reading the essay in front of them, they're talking to each other about what they wrote instead of what's actually on the paper in front of them. So always do it to what fits your class. And I don't always. What I like to do is if I'm using a live essay, I actually give them one from just like a sample essay that we get as hey, this is the Model 3, or this is the Model 5 that they give you at the read. I do that with the live essays that they have available on the website, when I use the live essays, which is a lot of fun with the DBQs.
Yeah, I usually don't do that. I'm sure most of us do this, right? We have like a certain higher standard that we expect in our own classroom. Is maybe more.
Oh yeah.
More than what the rubric nationally would be. And so I like to use the live samples at the end of the year, and because to me it's like they get reassured because they're like, oh my gosh, I can write a way better essay than that. Like by the end of the year, they have it down. They know what the expectation is. They're pretty comfortable writing really good, solid essays. And so then when they see like what passes to a 3 or a 5, it's like really reassuring to them. It's like a confidence boost. I usually do that towards the end of the year.
Yeah, when it's the week of the test and you hand them, okay, score this, they read it and they're going, oh man, this is awful. What did it get? It got a 6. What? Oh yeah,
I could do that in my sleep.
Man, this would get like a 1 in our class. Okay, so let's go on to the next one here. Okay, well, we kind of just talked about all this too, with exchanging papers and all that. I always do it when they peer review. It has to be a minimum of 2 reads per paper. That way, usually they're pretty close to each other. Sometimes you get the huge gaps, and just like the table leader, I go back and read those and find out which one is closer. And then I've actually had to take them to a side. So, you're being way too nice. You're not giving anything. So, and you guide them that way. And that way they can actually be very efficient at it. And one of the advantages I have with them being skilled peer reviewers is that they know how to put stuff into the essay so it's easy to find.
Right, and easy, yeah, easy to score. Oh my
Everybody okay out there?
gosh. I think my cat's just had a huge fight. I need to figure out what they knocked over.
All right. Okay. Do you have? And we've talked about some other ideas to improve free response questions. Anybody have anything else they want to throw out there?
I mean, I try to do multiple opportunities to practice. If I'm in a situation where I can't really grade a whole essay, at least having them write a thesis statement to answer the question to make sure they're on the right track. I also use Padlet, which is like just a website. You give them the link and have them post their thesis statement on, like, it looks kind of like a discussion board, and then they can go on and read other people's just to get an idea, because I think sometimes they get ideas when they read other people's and see how theirs matches up with other people's. So just trying to improve their answers through multiple opportunities to practice as much as you can. But like I said, I really struggle with getting everything graded on time.
I'm getting that right now. I'm like, look, there's 30 of you in this class, not counting all the other papers to grade.
Right.
I can only grade them so quickly and give you feedback, because I can score them fast if you don't want feedback.
Right. Exactly.
One thing.
Right, but you're right. Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, I have the luxury of having a really tiny class, but in just ideas for other people who have larger classes. If your kids have access at least at some point to some kind of online, your phone or a home computer, one strategy that I thought of with the feedback that's sort of quick is to record just with QuickTime as you're reading through their essay. Just record yourself talking through the comments, and then you can make that available to them. I just got this idea because when I was in high school.
Are you saying talk your way through the essay with them, or?
Okay, so this is how I got the idea for that. When I was in high school, in my English classes, we had to give our teacher a cassette tape, right? That's what we did. So, and because when we turned in papers, the teacher would put the cassette tape in the little tape recorder. She'd hit record, and as she was going through our papers, she would talk through the comments. And so then, we'd get our paper back and the cassette back, and we could listen, and we could hear her comments on our paper, fix, to get better on, and all that. So similar kind of thing online. You can record through QuickTime as you're reading through a paper. You can record your comments and then make that available to them.
I don't know if I want some of my comments on their papers to be recorded.
You definitely have to, but that's just a way of it being, because you have so many kids, you don't necessarily have time to do one-on-one conferences with them, and you maybe don't have time to write out all of the commentary. But
I like that idea.
Could you give me the name of that site again, though?
No, I mean, there's lots of different ways you could do it. You could make a little QuickTime recording. You could, whatever recording, like sound recording you have on your computer, then you could either email that recording to them, or if you have a Google Drive, you can like upload.
Save it directly to their student drive. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's just an idea of a way to sort of manage the lots of kids,
Oh, that is brilliant. Then they can't complain they can't understand my writing. Awesome.
Right.
Okay. One of the things that I work with my students on, and I'm still struggling with this, is get them to actually figure out the words that they need to pay attention to. And so what some of the things that they suggest is underlining the terms used in the question, particularly with those short answers. Do you remember the one about the Roman Empire and diseases? You got the describing and the ID, that identify part in A and B, but didn't take it that step further for explain. And so we need to work. That's one thing I have to work on with my kids.
I feel like, and the College Board may have this, and maybe I've just never seen it, but like a sample for each verb, like describe, identify, explain, and analyze, like what would fit. Like I know, like I look at Bill Strickland stuff a lot, and my kids really find a lot of use from, like, I don't know if you've ever seen like where he does the sentences to where like how you can get multiple points in one sentence, like power writing.
Oh yeah.
With like my my more advanced students, but I feel like something like a chart where they have, you know, one specific document and they show what it means to describe. They show a sample of what it means to identify, explain, and analyze. And going back to the previous question, I feel like my students benefit the most with free response questions if they can see an example. And I feel like maybe, like, does the College Board have something like that to where they have like, this is what describe looks like in a paragraph, this is what identify looks like, and explain and analyze?
We actually do have resources, and that's actually one of the slides here coming up.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. But there was actually a list posted by a College Board, and it was a universal list for all of them, and had all the verbs and commands instruction guide, and it told you what they wanted for each one. That's actually what I used for my word wall for several years. Okay. Was that admins were, you're using the same ones? Well, I'm teaching the same class. Yeah, I'll use the same ones. But, okay. All right, and that was on. I actually got that off the old server. Do you remember that, Amy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only useful thing I ever got off that.
Well, I've only been doing this for 3 years, and I feel like I still learn something new, like every month. I'm like, oh.
Hey, this is my 12th year now, and I feel the same way.
Learn new things every day.
And wait till you get to the read; you'll learn a lot more. Okay, and don't forget at AP Central you'll find the essay questions, rubrics. They'll actually give for the scoring. They'll actually tell you where they gave the points or why they gave the points, and usually they'll have a 1, 2, or 3, a 4 or 5, maybe a 6, and then a 7 or 8 for you to use as live essays that we were talking about earlier. And when you go to the read, you can get all that stuff.
Okay.
All right, and then here's actually where you can find it in AP. And they're redoing this. Now remember, they're also posting stuff on behind the audit firewall. They'll actually have I think there's 2 of them currently posted, and they're supposed to be posting a new one when they put out the new rubrics with the new test. They're going to post another practice test.
Okay. Are you going to put that in the secure documents part of the audit?
It's going to be behind the audit firewall.
Is that like in the secure, like when you log into your audit and then you pick secure documents?
Yes, that's where it's supposed to be.
It's not there yet.
Well, the updated one won't come out until they've actually finalized everything and after this year. At least that's what we were told. Okay. Let's move on here, and of course, how can we use Insight to help? You've got the feedback.
Sorry, my computer makes funny noises. I don't know how to turn it off.
It's okay. Mine's been freezing off and on throughout the presentation. So I thought I was advancing the slides, and I wasn't. Right. So you can use Insight to help you improve and encourage them to keep track of their own progress. Because remember when you did the introductory one, they showed you how to get the students to map their progress. Okay, make sure they chase those rabbit holes, because there's a lot of extra information to help them clarify where they were what they missed, and how to help them improve in those specific challenge areas. And then here, last part of here, before we wrap up, is how can we as teachers use these assessments to help them acquire the skills needed to be successful in the actual exam. And we've kind of been answering that the whole time, haven't we?
Yeah.
Right.
Anything extra anybody want to throw out there?
No. I don't think so.
Okay. If you have any other questions, now this actually was recorded, and they will post it to look back on. And always go back to the best practices, and you can tap into other people's knowledge, kind of like what we did here, and find out more information about whatever you're needing help in. And here's where you can find the share what works. And there's always someone looking back over these threads, excuse me, not trains, threads, to help answer any questions and help you find what you're looking for. Of course, other people will see what you post and respond as well. Has any of you all used this yet?
I haven't.
I've read several of them. I haven't posted anything yet, but I've read several of them. Some really good ideas in there too. Right. And I apologize for going a little bit over, but here is the survey. If you could take this, you can just copy and paste that link if it won't copy for you, and just go through there.
Is this the last thing?
The only last thing we have is the one about the more information, AP Insight, College Board, the phone number, the stuff you already know.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with me for the last hour and a half.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Natasha. Make sure you look us up. I'll be the guy with the Clemson outfit on,
Okay.
and Amy will be the one avoiding me because the orange glare burns her eyes or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I sent my application about a month ago, I guess. Whenever I found out that I was going to be available to go this summer, so I'm excited. I haven't been able to. I've had something each summer. I haven't been able to go yet. So, and this is my third year, so I finally kind of feel comfortable going.
Well, we look forward to having you.
Yeah.
And remember, my name's Joseph Pattenberg, and if you need anything, Greenville County Schools website, Southside High School, feel free to email me.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Y'all have a great night. Good talking with you again, Amy.
Thank you. See you
Right.
at the reading.
Bye.
All right, definitely. Y'all have a great night. And Merry Christmas.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.